Hi, and welcome to a new video with Athena Quant. Today we're going to talk about something really powerful, a mental model for making decisions when you just can't be sure about things. It's called Bayesian thinking, and it can seriously give you an edge in your trading.
So let's just dive right in with a question that, every single trader has asked themselves at some point. You're on a hot streak. Things are going great. Is it because you're a genius, or are you just getting lucky?
And look, knowing the difference is absolutely critical, right? That's where Bayesian thinking comes in. It gives us a real framework to move past just a gut feeling and start building actual, quantifiable confidence in our strategies.
You know, as traders, we're pretty much always operating in this fog of uncertainty. We're trying to find that one clear signal in a whole lot of noise. So the real challenge is, how do you make smart decisions when you know you don't have all the facts?
Well, the core idea is it's beautifully simple. You just start with a belief, any belief. Then, as you get new evidence, you update it. That's it. It's kind of how we all learn naturally, right? But this just adds a really rigorous, structured backbone to the whole process. Now, what's really fascinating here is just how much that starting belief, what we call a prior, actually matters. It's huge. Let's walk through a classic, kind of counterintuitive example to see exactly what I mean.
Okay, so imagine this. There's this super rare disease, right? It only affects 1% of the population. And we have a test for it that's really, really accurate, like 95% accurate.
So you take the test, and it comes back positive. What's the actual chance you have the disease? Come on, your gut is probably screaming 95%, isn't it? Well, the reality is shockingly different.
Yeah, and the actual probability is only about 16%. Crazy, right? So why? It's because the disease is so rare to begin with. That initial 1% chance, the base rate, is just so incredibly low that it drags the final number way, way down, even with that super accurate test.
So the big takeaway here is this. That prior belief, it matters a lot. Ignoring that starting point, that base rate, it's a super common mental trap. And that's exactly why we have to consciously think about our starting assumptions before we even look at new evidence.
Okay, so let's bring this back to trading. We're going to translate this whole idea by breaking down the 3 core parts that make this engine for updating our beliefs actually work.
This table, it lays it out perfectly. You start with your prior. That's your initial belief. Something like, I'm skeptical. This strategy's probably a coin flip, 50-50. Then you get new evidence. We call this the likelihood. For example, you see it wins 60 out of 100 trades in a backtest. Then you combine those two and you get your new, updated belief, the posterior. So you go, okay, now that I've seen the data, I'm thinking the win rate is actually closer to 58%.
And here's where it gets really powerful. It's not a one-and-done thing. It's a continuous loop. Your updated belief from today, your posterior, well, that just becomes your starting point, your prior, for tomorrow. It's a system that's designed for constant, intelligent learning.
So, okay, how does this actually help us in the real world? What's the point? Well, it's all about sharpening our conviction over time. It's about turning a vague guess into a much more precise estimate.
You can almost picture it, right? You can visualize your belief evolving. You might start out with this really wide, uncertain guess about how a strategy is going to perform. But then, as you get more and more data from actual trades, that belief starts to get sharper, more focused. It becomes a much more confident estimate.
Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you start with a total shot in the dark, a 50% win rate, with a huge, massive range of uncertainty. But then, after 120 trades, your best guess moves to 58.3%. And here's the really important part. Look at that 95% range. See how it's narrowed? It's tightened up dramatically. You are getting so much more certain about what this strategy can actually do. And that is the whole point right there. You are literally funneling uncertainty out of your decision-making process. Every single trade gives you more data that systematically shrinks that range of what's possible. And that lets you trade with so much more conviction.
So what's the real practical payoff for a trader? What do you get out of this? Well, it all boils down to making better decisions, more intuitive decisions, and crucially, more defensible decisions when you're under the pressure of a live market. A huge part of the edge here comes from how we even talk about probability. A Bayesian credible interval it's incredibly intuitive. It lets you say something direct, like, based on all the evidence I have, there is a 95% probability the true win rate is between 49% and 67%. See, that's a direct, common sense statement about your belief.
And that is exactly what a trader needs to make a decision.
So when you put it all together, this approach gives you a real system. A system to quantify your confidence, a way to adapt intelligently as new market data comes in. And it helps you make much more rigorous decisions on, well, everything, from which strategy you should trade to exactly how much capital you should be putting on the line.
The key thing to remember here is that Bayesian thinking just provides a formal process for what the best traders are already doing intuitively. It helps you take all that messy, real-world trading experience and turn it into a structured, quantifiable edge.
So I'll leave you with a final thought, a question really. What's one long-held belief you have about the markets that you're now ready to really put to the test? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.